All right, free agency has shaken up the NFL landscape. It's shaken up the landscape in best ball drafts. I've got Hayden Winks and Davis Mattek. We're going to talk about all the ADP shifts this week. It's ADP chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your site.
Jamar. Alpha play chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally fist boys. You're right.
How's it going, guys?
What's good?
You know, we're still waiting. We're still waiting. 7 teams have signed a wide receiver. 7 teams, bro. 7
That's
teams.
crazy. I mean, it's not the best class. We were talking before we started about blurbing free agency, which Hayden and I both have experience doing, but fortunately are not doing this week. Instead, we get to sit back and enjoy the moves and think about how it's going to affect our best ball drafting strategy.
Yeah, the big thing is not doing the cornerback blurbs and stuff where you're like, okay, like literally, is this guy even starting and stuff? Like there's some guys like, you're like, man, I have to literally research this entire player's profile. But now we got it easy. Just turn on the camera and go.
Yeah.
We love it. Yeah.
We do.
Why is McCole Hardman not a Chicago Bear yet? People are asking.
I thought he was going to get like more money than expected just because his like draft stats.
No, dude. No, the longer this goes on, the more money he's going to get. He hasn't signed because teams are coming with this weak ass 4 years, $45 million. And he's like, come again, bucko. Jacoby Myers just got $11 million a year. I am not Jacoby Myers, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So you think this is good? I feel like if he was going to get the bag, I thought he would have gotten it right out of the gate.
You know, I think one thing that sort of changed is, don't you guys feel that the NFL was a little bit, because last year it just all broke the day. Don't you think it was a little bit like, all right, guys, like let's actually wait until the legal tampering period. Like every deal doesn't need to come out at once. And you got to think a fair few number of teams are probably trying to decide if they have the cap space to get Godwin or Sutton or Evans or Judy or Hopkins or whoever. And whenever that starts to settle, teams are going to be looking at like Equinemi St. Brown is my second wide receiver or whatever. Just fill your name in. Nelson Aguilar, Richie J, just whoever. And they're going to be like, this is not a tenable way to run a professional football organization.
Yeah. I think it's a good point. The trade market is what I was this entire offseason so far. I was like, the wide receiver trades are just going to be coming, like big time players moving. And I think every team's been thinking that, but like no one's found the right value for that yet. And I think there could be one trade that springs a bunch of them. But yeah, the free agency class isn't very good. I don't think the rookie class is very good either. So I thought the trades were going to be a big part of this.
Yeah, and the Bears trade was cool to see, but that one obviously doesn't only one team has the number 1 pick and is looking to trade down. So this doesn't really help teams like find the value. But Mike Evans has got to be elsewhere, right? Like DeAndre Hopkins has got to be elsewhere. Like this stuff has to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, Brandon Cooks has to be elsewhere.
Oh, Brandon Cooks is a big one. Yeah,
there's a bunch of them. Maybe it happens right before the draft. So I'm still holding out hope, but it's like makes it a little more difficult to kind of gauge like stacking and all that stuff. Because like we know like what 4 or 5 of the top 30 wide receivers in fantasy rankings could get moved and their status is going to be massively different. So it makes it fun to kind of speculate though.
For sure. Well, Sam is not here today, but his charts are here. We've got a little bit of tweaks on now. There might be a better way to share these. I think he said he loaded them in the site, but I can't find them. So you'll have to deal with the sidebar. But he adjusted these, and I think a very sharp way where they're now based on percentage change. So we're getting a little bit more of guys higher up the board, although it's interesting because the biggest riser is Rashad Penny, who was a very late round pick and has risen up, I guess, to 138. But you're seeing Garrett Wilson. He's seen just 4 changes in ADP, but he's moved in a very, very expensive part of the draft. So I like this change to the chart. You're seeing more of, some guys higher up boards rather than just the sleeper types.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
That's what we want. Like we don't want to be talking about the 260 Chase Brown every single week, one way or the other. And this as the Penny start is fascinating because you could just tell me any story about Rashad Penny. You could tell me Rashad Penny is a healthy scratch while Trey Sermon, Hayden's boy, is finally, returning to prominence. You could tell me Rashad Penny scored 14 rushing touchdowns. You could tell me he gets hurt in training camp and we never see him again. I mean, he and Donta Foreman both feel like I would believe anything you'd tell me about them right now.
Well, Hayden, what's your kind of philosophy? It's that if the guy's making, is it guaranteed money or total contract less than the BBM prize? That's our warning sign, right?
Guaranteed money for this year is a pretty good indicator.
Well, total contract less than last year's BBM prize.
Right.
Tough scenes for Rashad Penny. Guy broke his leg and he can't fucking out earn Kerrane on his couch.
You gotta out earn me. I mean, come on, you're a professional running back.
Yeah, it's tough with these running backs though, and we haven't released Best Ball Mania 4 prizes yet, so it's still TBD. So I think you can draft him now until BBM 4 prizes come out, and then we'll have to have it.
Oh, okay, all right, that's a loophole. You can, as long as you don't know. Now, it's safe, I imagine.
The thing about Penny is that he's just so fucking good. Like that. Right? I mean, that's like my really high level, sophisticated analysis of how many fantasy points he's going to score. Is that like when that guy is on the field and whatever team he's playing for is giving him the ball, he is just ripping off fantasy points. And he's not going to catch the ball at all because he didn't catch the ball at all in Seattle. Jalen Hurts doesn't really throw to the running backs, and when he does, they remove whoever their lead rusher is. But I don't care. I just think obviously for best ball, I think this price is totally fine. Like 138 where it's up. No, he's going to get way higher than that.
He's going to get higher.
He's going to get way higher than that. But even in like managed stuff, it's like Rashad Penny's active. Like I just am going to start him. I think I just am not. I'm not sweating.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's just like it's like the same deal with Miles Sanders. Like Miles Sanders, so useless in 2021, no touchdowns, like just the most useless guy. But the whole team got better. Sanders' role didn't change. He just ran way better.
Yeah. I think you want to think about Penny around pick 100. Are you taking him there? Because I think that's where he's going to get up to.
Yeah, there's like the rug pull RB3s that the NFL draft can absolutely spoil, like Rashad White range, all of those type of backs, James Cook. I think that he belongs right there because the Eagles could still add a like Kendre Miller in the round 4, something like that, and really throw a big wrench into this. But he has more upside to me than like Rashad White types and stuff, just because, or maybe not all the way upside, but like an easier path to RB2 status just because of the offense. And I wasn't expecting his money to be very big at all, because the Eagles are very smart about this, and they can just play the incentive game with him because he's done so little with it. So the money thing doesn't really matter to me. They're not going to invest a lot of money into the position no matter what. So I think it's just going to be let the best man win. And like his best performance, if he's healthy, is there's not a rookie running back in this class where the Eagles will be drafting these guys that's going to be better than Rashad Penny based off of just like on-field performance.
Well, Deuce Vaughn, obviously, but
oh god, please. I think that's the interesting thing about this class as well is that it's a lot of guys who project to be like versions of Rashad Penny. You know, like you're hoping like, oh man, he could be Rashad Penny. Mm-hmm. So like if Tank Bigsby or Kendre Miller ends up there or whatever, like I'm not shaking in my boots. I'm like, I have the better version with Rashad Penny. I guess if Tajay Spears went there, maybe that would like, that's a different archetype, but they have Kenny Gainwell. I don't know that they would do that. Like they already kind of have that guy too. So yeah, I think the fact that it's the Eagles makes me a little less concerned about the money. But then again, like Rotopat was pointing out, like they could cut Rashad Penny if he's not healthy, if he just doesn't look good in training camp. Like this is not a contract that assures he is on the week 1 roster, and he's coming off a broken leg. So there's definitely like if he's a 9th round pick, it could be, you know, I drafted a lot of Rojo in round 10 and 11 last year around this time. You can, when the money's not there, you have a lot of downside risk. You know, there's game day inactive risk, that type of stuff. I think Penny he just has flashed so much when healthy that I'm more skeptical that type of outcome occurs, but it's in the range.
Pat, are you
Coaches-
concerned? Really quick, Pat, are you concerned that Trey Sermon's making more money than Kenny Gainwell from the Eagles this year?
Well,
is that just because of service time stuff and where they were
It's
drafted?
draft position.
Right.
by like
is
a
that
round.
what it is?
Yeah, it's like $100,000 difference.
So they're
No, I'm not concerned.
is the highest paid Eagles running back technically Boston Scott because of service
Yes.
time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably,
that's
yeah.
amazing. I mean, so short.
Kudos to Boston.
So I would basically just say I don't care how much any of these guys are getting paid because they're
Yeah.
spending like $4.5 million in the position. My guess, actually knowing how the Eagles are, my guess is the guy they draft, whatever round they probably 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. It's actually not going to be a big guy. It's not going to be the Trey Sermon type. It's actually going to be the Gainwell type because Gainwell is already heading into year 3 of his contract. They don't care, dude. Gainwell, see ya. It's like we're the Eagles, dude. The Eagles are probably the number 1 team that puts the nerd NFL Twitter shit onto the field. So they are not giving Gainwell 3 years, $12 million when his contract is up. They're
not.
Let someone else do that. So I would actually bet like a Zach Evans, a Deuce. I mean, I'm going to keep trying to meme Deuce Vaughn into existence, but you guys know what I mean. Like they're maybe Devin Achane, you know. Hayden doesn't watch.
Davis, you should watch Keaton Mitchell, ECU.
He's real fast. He's fast.
Bigger than Deuce Vaughn, and he's more athletic. And the dude has like, I hate these small type of running backs usually for fantasy purposes, but this guy's tape, I was like, okay, this guy's pretty interesting.
I mean,
Wait, are you not in on Deuce Vaughn? This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
Yeah, this is a Deuce. He's not. I know.
XFL
Same reason. Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, yes, but we're still in.
I mean, that's what Kerrane and I are like. We did a post combine show, and we were both like, "Yeah, we're gonna be playing this dude in USFL DFS in 2 years." But I'm in on it because I'm in on him because if he's not an undrafted free agent, if a team takes him, it's gonna mean that the coach or the director of player personnel saw something and was like, we can specifically use this because you're not going to draft the shortest player in NFL combine history by accident. Like that. It's just not, it's not something that happens, you know.
He's got a test, man. Yeah. Go crush your pro day, please.
In the 7th round, you're going to see the ticker. They're going to draft him as a motivational speaker.
Oh, come
it's
on.
going to be over.
No, he's going to be a special teams ace in year 7. In year 7, when he's done nothing for your dynasty.
I could see that actually. Well, is he too small to even be good on special teams though? Like, can a 180-pound man tackle the average punt returner?
No, he's the punt returner. That's the game.
Oh, right? Okay, I can see that. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Last couple things on Penny. One, I've seen him go behind Kenny Gainwell still. That seems wrong to me. I feel like you want to. Okay, you guys are with that, and then. One thing that came up on the Roto Football show is we talked about Penny versus David Montgomery, another kind of free agents guy, although he's not on the risers, which is interesting.
I don't want David Montgomery in any situation.
Okay. Versus Jamal Williams. No, versus Sanders. That's who he said. Penny, Sanders, or Montgomery. Where are you guys on those 3?
Penny last. I think the market will agree with that. I think it'll be multiple round difference just because so many people are going to be out on the injuries. I think Sanders has the easiest path to RB2, but I think that Montgomery has the easiest path to like.
Better question. Which one of them has the biggest rise from the end of Best Ball Mania 4 to Best Ball Resurrection? Which one sees the largest delta between where they're drafted in week 1 and week 6?
Montgomery, I think, has a chance to like.
It's totally Penny. It's 4 healthy Penny weeks.
It's Penny's healthy. That's the answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
here's why David Montgomery I'm not in. The value where he was providing when he was a good fantasy running back in Chicago was not ever related to his efficiency. It was just him getting the ball and because they wouldn't even take him off the field on 3rd downs. I mean, Jamal Williams sun run his goddamn ass off last year to accumulate the touchdowns that he did. Like, how many times did Amon-Ra St. Brown get tackled at the 1 yard?
Yeah, dude.
At least 5 times Amon-Ra St. Brown got tackled at the 1 yard line. And so then you're talking about the guy who's in the ass end of a timeshare, who's got to just get 3 yard touchdowns to get spike weeks, and that just feels
Well,
precarious.
the thing I'd push back on, so for I just to answer my own question, I would have Penny first. I like Penny the most of these three guys.
I
I
agree.
think that's where the upside comes. That's where the 1 week upside comes in. But I think I'd have Montgomery too, just because I feel like it could be the Leonard Fournette thing again from 2 years ago, where they're just like, you know what, we're trying to make the playoffs, and this guy like doesn't screw anything up ever. Now, does he ever do anything good? Nope. But we just
coaches clearly do not like DeAndre Swift. Clearly,
Yeah.
Dan Campbell has like had enough of DeAndre Swift.
They could
always
trade him
being hurt.
tomorrow. I would not be surprised.
That's
Yeah,
a great
I
point.
agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
So it's just like I could see 80% snap share David Montgomery in the fantasy playoffs, and that would really help you in the 9th round. It really would. So
I think Montgomery's
I'm
going to
gonna
go way
have some.
earlier. I think Montgomery's going to go way earlier. I think he's going to be
Oh.
right next to DeAndre Swift, like round 6, right in the middle of the dead zone.
Well, then I'll
$18
be
million
happy to fade
is
him.
so much money. Like, to me, it's just like, look at that offense. Who really cares if Swift gets hurt or gets traded or like that? We've seen Montgomery, even if we don't think that he's going to like have breakaway plays, that he can play passing downs. And I think that's the difference between Jamal and David Montgomery is there's a chance that he steals some of DeAndre Swift's pass game work just because he's done it before. He's a better pass protector, and that they just value him. Like, $18 million is so much money in the running back market, and they had, going back to the Hard Knocks last year, that was like a perfect chance to show off DeAndre Swift. He could be like a total NFL like fan favorite, and they were going out of their way to like talk about like how he's not tough enough and how his vision's bad and stuff. Like on like the official NFL show, they were like talking shit on him openly. It was very, very strange. And then they give Jamal all that work, and now they give David Montgomery all this money. It seems like Montgomery's got like a league-winning path just because the offense.
I think at his current price, I agree. He's going at pick 100. He's not on this risers list. We talk about closing line value a lot on this podcast. Shout out to Sam, by the way. He mentioned a couple times in the Discord that he was a little bummed not to be on the show because he had previously selected Rashad Penny for his closing line value flag plant, and that one is going to hit in a big way. But it sounds like, from what you're saying, Hayden, we should be drafting Montgomery even if we don't love him, because like I want no parts of him in the 6th round. Like I will be happily passing. But if he's going to end up there, if he's going to end up there, like you should be drafting him at pick 100.
What about James Conner as a kind of like a couple years ago, James Conner, where he was getting the red zone work? It was the same exact contract. He's not out of the prime of his career. No one really loves James Conner. No one really loves David Montgomery except the coaches, and the offense was good with the Cardinals during James Conner's big breakout. And we know the Lions are going to be so good. So like James Conner was like an 8th, 9th round pick. I can see an 8th, 9th round pick paying off with an RB.
My third eye is starting to open here. Seeing the issue would be is if Swift miraculously ingratiates himself to the coaching staff somehow, because I think one thing that you actually could say about Dan Campbell that seems more true about him than regular NFL coaches is he seems like he's not going to play guys who are stinking. You know, Amon-Ra St. Brown probably would not have gotten as many chances on, you know, if he was playing for the, I don't know, Pittsburgh Steelers or something. Like he probably would have been playing behind Steven Sims, but he rewards guys who are playing really well. And, like if Swift shows up in great shape, doesn't get hurt, which is like, you know, obviously that could, like, we don't have a ton of evidence to suggest that is happening. And David Montgomery probably will be Dan Campbell's like favorite dude ever. But Swift is so much better than him efficiency wise that if Swift is playing well, it's hard for me to imagine Montgomery doing anything other than what Jamal Williams did last year.
Yeah, it is a problem that Montgomery's like not good. That seems to be that's generally I do think not.
There's a difference between we thinking that he's not good versus what coaches think. And like every indication going back to draft profile
good,
3rd round. Yeah,
no, but the Bears coaches,
if you are good.
Yeah, and the Bears coaches soured on him too. You know, it's like the Bears coach. I mean, the Bears freaking signed Donta Foreman and Travis Homer, like the most like hand in the dirt, grinding running backs ever, and they decided David Montgomery was like not good enough.
The money was way different though. I'm just gonna go back to the Lions evaluation. Fair. And even if, let's say, DeAndre Swift is like the alpha here, now that we know David Montgomery is clearly capable of 3-down work and attached to a good offense, where would we be drafting him strictly as a handcuff type of guy. He would still be 10th, 11th round.
Yeah.
That's why I do think you should be drafting him now. I really do.
So like I think
Yeah.
6th, 7th round for the chance for him to be the lead back. And the worst case, you have a handcuff that we would probably be ranking as the number 1 handcuff possibly in the entire league, just because we have so much faith in the Lions offense.
It's just the meme in drafting this year is going to be like, let's find this year's Josh Jacobs, like boring guy who's like kind of sucked and whatever. And like, I can see David Montgomery fitting into that stereotype. And the number one thing is I just don't think David Montgomery is going to catch that many passes on this team.
Maybe Sanders might be, he has a case to be the Josh Jacobs, where it's like, guy we're just over, goes to a team. They just decide to give him all the touches.
Sanders was that guy last year.
Yeah, he kind of was. But now he could potentially be catching some more dump offs from a rookie quarterback.
And when he was with Deuce Staley back in Eagles, he had like 67 and 50 targets, and those have gone away with Jalen Hurts. But they brought Deuce Staley in, and then his first move was to bring back Miles Sanders. And those were his best fantasy years, like based off of like projected points, not based off of random touchdowns.
Yeah, I think like if you're taking these guys at the very end of, 9th round range, like it feels pretty good, actually. Sanders up to pick 90. Wide receiver completely falls off in that range anyway. So like it's a good time to pivot to running back. It's a good time, like historically, that's been a pretty good time to select running backs. And I think all 3 of these guys might settle. They feel like dead zone backs to me. So I don't know if they're going to get priced like them. I don't know if they're going to get into the 5th round at any point, but it's certainly possible, especially when projections start to drive things a little bit more.
What are you guys' thoughts on the old running backs and like their value? Because something I've been thinking about is just there's not going to be an easy projection like for fantasy running backs, because all the old guys that have been volume hogs, like we're talking about age cliffs this year. So I think there's going to be some uncomfortable.
You're talking about Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, that whole pocket, right? Joe Mixon's in that range.
So like
I think Joe Mixon's
somebody's
not going to be a Bengal.
Yeah, I can see them getting rid of him too. But like somebody has to, like the NFL is still going to rush for yards and still rush for touchdowns. Like there's going to be some new faces that are just absorbing workloads that we have never seen do this before. And these are the type of guys that to me, like, okay, the 25-year-old that's just going to be taking work from what we've seen from like the 28, 29-year-old.
You already know who the Bengals guy is. It's Chris Evans.
Oh, I really wish, but I really do not see it. I think they're going to sign.
Are we getting Chris Evans to the second summer?
No, the Bengals are right now living the drill candles tweet, because in 12 months they're going to have 50% of their salary cap allocated to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. So they have to find any cost controlled labor they can. And if they were able to get Travion Williams or Chris Evans into the semblance of what Samaje Perine and Mixon did for them, they would be ecstatic. But I think Hayden is probably correct. Devin Singletary, Kareem Hunt has been tossed out there because he's already kind of got paid. So maybe he just wants to go be a lead back somewhere. Like if you could pay Kareem Hunt $8 million or Joe Mixon $11 million, it's like no contest. You're just going to pay $8 million.
Kareem might get like $2 million though.
And it's a good class to like bring in cheap Kareem Hunt and then draft a 5th and a 6th round running back. Like
yes.
You'll probably hit on something. Mm-hmm. Or go get Dearness Johnson. Like Dearness Johnson. Yeah. So much cheap running back labor. Do we think there's a market for a Dalvin Cook trade? Because that's they gave what Madison got $7.5 million, I think, guaranteed. And Madison has always been good. And it feels like maybe the Cook always being injured and always having the shoulder thing is starting to be a little bit bothersome, from a team planning. The Dolphins were floated as a team that was interested.
Every running back is floated to the Dolphins.
That's true.
I thought he was going to get cut, but then he had off-season shoulder surgery again. And one of the reasons why he probably did it is because he had a $2 million guaranteed bonus that kicks in like today. And since they can't release him because he wouldn't pass a physical right now, he's going to be locked on for $2 million more, which makes the team less incentivized to actually release him. So
that's so good.
Galvin.
So we'll see. They can still do it, but they would save, or like those $2 million are no longer being saved. Those are actually in Dalvin's paycheck.
Someone in the chat here FF Disguise bringing up Damian Harris, who I like. Damian Harris still exists, right? He's still on this planet. He's still like a pretty solid early down rush. I haven't heard anything about him. And
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. He seems like a guy that I would happily bring in if I was the Bengals, you know?
Why don't the Chiefs sign Damian Harris, to be honest?
he led the league in rushing touchdowns 2 years ago. I'm shocked that,
2 years
and he's
ago.
like a Belichick guy, Alabama guy. I thought that there would be like a power team that would want him.
I wonder if actually being a Belichick guy counts against you in free agency because, you know, like they get their production in such a specific way. You know what I mean? Where it's like once you've been used up by the Patriots, you got nothing left to give, kind of.
The nightmare.
Yeah, although he didn't play in his rookie year.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
So
going back to the Bengals, the reason why I picked Singletary is because like that offense, how often they're in like shotgun and stuff, and how Joe Burrow operates, that they love pass protection backs, and like Singletary is the guy that has been pass protecting at a like pretty good rate on third downs forever. And that's why Samaje Perine played so much versus Mixon. So I think that would be
know who one of the best pass blockers in NFL history is. You might have heard of him, a guy named Ezekiel Elliott. Used to play for the Dallas Cowboys.
No,
I could
please,
actually see that.
No, Zeke,
I could totally see it.
My brother-in-law texted me yesterday and was like, I think the Chiefs are going to sign Zeke. Like he was like fucking with me, but like I was just thinking about it. I was like, I don't actually could kind of see, because one, he's going to want to sign with a good team. He's not going to go sign with some shitty team or whatever. And two, a good team can talk themselves into Zeke the same way teams talk themselves into Le'Veon Bell, into LaShawn McCoy. Like he's so good in pass protection, and you know he's gonna
get
gold. those short yardage. You know, like how different is Ezekiel Elliott from the Chiefs signing Le'Veon Bell and LaShawn McCoy and Darrell Williams and all these old dust
Not
balls?
Different, especially because those guys did nothing.
LaShawn McCoy had
the
a
Bengals
2-touchdown game.
The Bengals are the team that needs the running back spot the most, because I'm with you. I think that Mixon's probably going to get out of there, and like they have nobody. They just lost like they need to protect Joe Burrow's knee more than anything else. Like the rushing yards really don't matter to them that much. They just need to make sure Burrow's upright. So Zeke Elliott over there would make some sense.
How do we play this in drafts besides not drafting Mixon, which I'm already doing? Because there's enough backs out there, right? There's Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott, Damian Harris. There's Leonard Fournette. So any of those guys could go there, and
you just take the uncertainty. You take any of the uncertain guys.
Shots. You're just taking shots on all of them?
You're just taking shots, and I think you take shots on lots of the third tier of running back prospects too, because that could be a spot they could land.
But that's easier, I think, because those guys is sort of like more of a bet on talent play. Maybe they kind of bubble up at the end of the season, no matter where they land.
Look, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but Leonard Fournette is going to be like a big part of some team's offense in 2023. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to tell you guys this, but like Jerry Jones has probably already called Leonard Fournette's agent to see if he's willing to take like a really small paycheck.
Another one would be Eckler gets traded and Fournette goes to the Chargers. I don't think I can stomach it, but it's very
Damian Harris to the Chargers. How about
Damian Harris to the Chargers makes a lot of sense.
That's a good one. That's a very
or
good
Zeke with follows Kellen Moore. I'm not sure if they were on the same page.
No, we don't want
that. I got to think Kellen Moore's like had enough of a working relation. Okay. Yeah, he's like,
that means poor Kellen. He's like, all right, here's Zeke again. All right, let's move on to this stack that we have a rising stack. DJ Moore and Justin Fields. I was curious how the market would handle this. And they're into it.
They're way too into it, man.
They're way too into it. Okay.
They need to zoom out on the chart.
I will say it's a nice little stack that you can make. I think one reason that you're seeing the increase is because it's like, what is it? Like
double click.
Yeah, the 4-5. Is it the 5-6 or the 3? Maybe it's the 3-4. Where you take one and then you grab the other. And to make it work, you kind of got to reach a little. So I wonder if that's driving this at all. And I have done it. It's a fun move.
It definitely is driving it. I mean, we saw this last year in Best Ball Mania 3 by how the Buccaneers ADPs mirrored Christian McCaffrey's. There was the Bills ADPs it was like Diggs and Allen's ADPs mirrored each other. The
Broncos.
Chargers guys. Yeah. The Broncos. Yeah. So I think that is a huge factor.
And we're so excited about Fields, but there's literally nobody to stack him with like that.
Right.
Got us excited. So now DJ Moore goes there. I think that the projections are going to come out, and then we're going to sort by projections versus rankings. We're going to say, how are we drafting DJ Moore here? Like, it's so hard to make this like math work for DJ Moore at this price tag. I get that it's like you want access to the Justin Fields 35-point game and he throws a touchdown and 100 yards to DJ Moore, then you're like going to win the tournament. So I don't think the projections have to line up exactly, but I really don't understand this one at all.
If you give the Bears 10 more passing attempts per game than they had last year, does DJ Moore's projection even hit this?
Well, yeah, that's the question, because I think what the Bears are doing here, you're bringing in DJ Moore. You're actually showing faith in Justin Fields after they really seemed like very ambivalent about whether or not he was going to be their quarterback going forward last year. And I think that these projections are fragile, where like the Bears were so extreme with their pass rate over expected just being super, super low. I'm pulling it up right now. It was like off the charts low. And
it was the fewest pass attempts since the 1979 Chiefs.
Yeah, they had minus 14% pass rate over expected. Minus 10%.
Now, how does pass rate over expected account for sacks and scrambles? That would be because I don't know the methodology.
Those are pass attempts.
Okay, so that makes it
dropbacks.
It's dropbacks. Yeah, they use
that makes it even worse because Justin Fields has been sacked on 13% of his career dropbacks, and he also led the NFL in scramble rate, which means that basically, like roughly 20% of the time when the Bears even call a pass play, a target doesn't even get directed.
Yeah. And sacks has been a big issue for him. Like that's a weakness of his game.
13% of your career is like twice as bad as Joe Burrow, who's like giant Achilles heel that keeps him from being a truly great quarterback, is that he eats too many sacks.
Yeah, that's a concern. But I do think like when you get to this level of run heaviness, like we saw this with the Ravens a couple years ago, where it's like enough things kind of just like went against like their preferred plan, where they were run first, but they weren't extremely run heavy. And the difference between where you're probably going to have to project the Bears and where they could be if they're just like a normal run first team is like pretty large. So I actually do think that for the purposes of trying to take down a top heavy, big best ball tournament, I think there's upside here. The other thing is like in the sense of you're doing the expensive stack, you want there to be upside. If the Bears play like they did last year, the team is dead. But like that,
well,
that's you're already betting on this stack to hit in a major way. So like that's
to steal an argument from one Mr. Chess Liam, winner of Best Ball Mania 2. This does look like the classic horrible advance rate, really high upside in the championship round. Because my guess is there are going to be a lot of weeks where DJ Moore has one reception for 18 yards.
Well, if it's that, then I think it's going to be a Mike Evans situation where like it's a bad enough advance rate that you don't even win when he does go off.
Oh, yeah, tough.
I think you need it to be like we were just a bit off on the projections, and then you get the weekly upside. You're going to need the weekly upside.
I mean, I traded away DJ Moore in the 2 leagues where I had him in Dynasty. I knew there was going to be a little bit of exuberance. I'm happy to be wrong because I always like when quarterback situations go from being bad to be good, and I still think Fields will be really good for fantasy. But he's got like. There's like twofold things. Like one, he's got a lot of work to do as a passer in general, and they have to let him pass more. So that's a tough developmental curve.
Anyone else jump out here on the risers?
Yeah, the Terrence Marshall feels like the 2023 version of Rashad Penny. Who was the guy? Who's the guy last year? There was another guy who was in like
Lazard, but he was more expensive.
Yeah, just like basically the idea of like someone's got to get the targets, and like actually it doesn't have to be Terrace Marshall. It could be Shai Smith. It could be Laviska Shenault. It could be a rookie we've never heard of. It could be Adam Thielen. Like I bet Adam Thielen scores more fantasy points than Terrace Marshall if he does in fact sign with the Panthers.
God, I can't live in that world.
Garrett Wilson. if once we get the news, is he going to go ahead of Devontae Adams, like 11th, 12th overall? Like,
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Like I don't see like I don't think he'll compete with Diggs, but because like people want to draft Josh Allen and versus Rodgers, but I can see him
Where
being,
does
like,
where does
overall.
Elijah Moore go?
To the
Well,
Packers?
You got the joke out first. I was gonna say
No,
it depends on how much you like Jordan Love.
Thank you. No, thank you. I can't do that.
Right, he's going to the Packers, right? I mean, that seems obvious.
I think Corey Davis is going, but the problem is there's no way that Elijah Moore is playing over Allen Lazard. And like no one's going to draft Allen Lazard. So I think the way to play it is probably just draft Allen Lazard because nobody wants to do it.
Why isn't, here's two things. Let's go back to running back for a second. Why isn't Tony Pollard on this list? Maybe it's
It was
like,
already priced in. It was already priced in.
I don't think it was. And then why isn't Breece Hall on this list?
They probably
That's a
just missed it.
Yeah.
I think we're like one positive report away from Breece Hall from raising the expectations.
Yeah.
But he's like going next to like Kenneth Walker and those guys. So there's some like a couple young guys. I'm surprised like Ramondre Stevenson kind of goes as late as he does. That's somebody I thought was going to go from like third, fourth round to into the second round.
I think the James Robinson signing is good because I think it keeps one of these rookies away.
Yeah.
And
I
James
was shocked
Robinson
at the number.
stinks.
I don't think he's going to
So-
make the team.
What was your favorite bad Patriots contract this week? The long snapper, the most guaranteed money ever for a long snapper is really on brand for the Patriots. But
Hard to beat
one
that.
year, $1 million after spending like the GDP of Barbados on Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith was also pretty good. It's just hard. Yeah, it's all pretty funny though.
When the Juju contract originally looked just like the Jacoby contract, it's like, we got worse Jacoby for the same price. It's like, oh man.
One really freeing thing is that I'm not going to have to psyop myself into Juju Smith-Schuster this offseason.
Yeah.
Like that feels like if he would have signed the 3-year 33 with Kansas City, and I would have had to have done this with he got banged up, and there was those 2 games where he really done, and he was a big play in the Super Bowl. Mahomes will trust him,
And he's still
like-
only 23, so
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, let's look at the fallers here. Booty. Davis, you called this right after the combine. You said
I mean,
he's done.
it's done for him, dude. I talked. So JJ tried to put me back. Like I was off the ledge. JJ tried to put me back on the ledge a little bit yesterday, which is basically like guys of this profile, even when their final year production stinks, some NFL team is going to be like, nope, I watched him in 2020. He was awesome, and I want him on my team. So maybe he doesn't go to day 3. My issue is I just don't even think he'll succeed in that. Like, even if he is a round 3 pick, I just think he'll stink. So I'm out.
Yeah.
Eckler should be a way bigger faller, though. Austin Eckler, outside of an environment where they force feed him 103 targets, is going to be like, we're looking at like fancy Kenneth Gainwell in his range of outcomes. It's really bad.
I think I agree.
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one.
Well, you could. I mean, one thing you could argue is like no team, like teams are not trading for running backs. Like it's 2023. Like he's just going to have to play for the Chargers.
Yeah, but it's also like if things have broken down between him and the team, and then they're looking to add. Are they going to add Charbonnet? Are they going to add?
Well, they've done that
one of these
for
many
like
free agents.
They've done that 19 years in a row. and
Yeah,
it's
but this
it's
time it'll work.
literally- Josh Kelly didn't work. Kalen Ballage didn't
Yeah,
work.
but-
Larry Roundtree didn't work. But this time it'll work.
This time it'll work. I think Charbonnet is better than those guys, but I mean,
It's just
Damian Harris is
it's,
the move.
It's like the professor of the dark arts at Hogwarts too. It's just a cursed position.
It is.
Nothing
It
you
is.
can
It's
do.
true.
Sony Michel was getting goal line carries in 2022 for a team that was trying to make the playoffs.
Oh God, yeah. Isaiah Spiller, I guess. I mean, I thought he would have been.
Oh,
something.
I had completely forgotten that and people were jazzed about. He was a first round rookie pick.
Oof. That
Yeah,
one
that's
did
not
not
great.
tell. All right, another rookie, Sean Tucker, a faller. This is an ADP. Sam's been pointing out this ADP for weeks. It's not really making any sense. I have not really seen much draft buzz on him. He seems sort of like a lot like Chase Brown when I look at the kind of the overall like archetype profiles, and Chase Brown just had a great combine. So I'm sort of like, why are we preferring him to Chase Brown?
when initial Dynasty rankings came out for this class, like in January, then that's like obviously like all spreadsheet people. They loved Sean Tucker, early declare, really productive, and then some people thought he was going to run like a 4.4 at like 220.
I'll push back on this. I actually think the early Dynasty people are more film guys because they're
January rankings are film dudes because
that's the
spreadsheet
film
dudes
guys.
are still gambling in January.
Our spreadsheets aren't ready yet, Hayden.
It's
coming in February.
Yeah.
But the people drafting on Underdog are going to be the guys that are going to be the spreadsheet guys that are getting into drafts early to some degree. I think
they're
Tucker
the film
stuff,
guys. This is where you see.
I'm blaming Establish the Run.
ADP
There's my
was
take.
super high coming in. I remember being
I'm blaming Establish the Run. I think that they had Sean Tucker as RB4 initially.
Okay, all right. We can blame ETR.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny that websites influence over these markets. It's like if they're wrong on someone, but they're really aggressively wrong, like off by like 30 spots, it's like people will because they just draft, they put their rankings in the applet and it'll never change, right? So like if they just have someone and look, we've all done rankings. Sometimes you just put a guy somewhere, it's like I've got, it's like,
Davis, opening the curtain there.
Look, we've all done rankings. Sometimes
you got to put everyone somewhere. So
you don't really have strong feelings on your dude who's 153rd versus 185th. But when you're drafting by another site's rankings and not off ADP, it could just mean you look at your thing and you're like, oh, I got this guy ranked 20 spots ahead. I'm taking him every time, obviously. It's just it's not their fault either. Like it's a way you have to do it, but it's just kind of one of those things that's funny.
I've watched him. I don't think he's very good.
He seems fine. He actually, to your spreadsheet point, the one thing he does pop in is backfield dominator rating, which Blair Andrews has noted is, that's the thing that kind of showed Philip Lindsay.
I was going to say that's a Philip Lindsay stat.
Yeah, it's a Philip Lindsay stat, and it's generally pretty good at identifying later guys who don't have draft capital. And so I guess like Sean Tucker, someone that I'd be pretty interested in at the very end of drafts. But what I haven't understood is why he goes, at around, he was going around like pick 120 to start ahead of Devin A-Chain. And it's like A-Chain might be a second round pick. So I'm not taking a guy who has risk of falling to like the 6th round over.
JJ hates A-Chain, by the way.
Really?
It was like, it's like, that's like his, it's like too small. Just because his JJ's model, his like Z score or whatever, like really heavily weights weight. So if you're like 188 pounds, you're just basically not showing up.
That's what my model and stuff cares about the most too. It's just weight. It just matters so much. Like that's why I like Roshan's interesting to me. Kendre Miller's interesting. He's the early declare and has the size. Dwayne McBride, no one's gonna like him because he caught literally 2 passes.
What's he run though? I'm worried about his speed.
I went into his tape thinking that, and then I thought he had a little bit more burst. He was injured.
He's definitely got burst.
Did he play Colorado State,
but then it like slow. He's like and then it's just like that. He never speeds up again.
We'll see if he runs at his pro day. I don't know when it is, but he was injured. But that's kept his ADP all the way down. But these guys are like classic, the Brian Robinsons of the class, where you're like, we don't love him, but he's actually on the field, and then all these other guys really aren't. That's why I like Zach Charbonnet so much. Like I think Zach Charbonnet has the size and he catches passes. Like to me, like there's your upside case.
I think he's got kind of like a Cam Akers type of thing where he could just like, he's not going to be an amazing pass catcher, but he could just be out there all the time.
Yeah, I comped him to James Conner, and he's had.
I prefer betting on dudes who just got the ball a shit ton for like blue blood college programs. Like that's just like such a good asymmetric bet where it's like, oh yeah, a lot of these guys are going to flame out, and you're not going to get any production from them anyways. But I had a lot of Brian Robinson last year before he got shot. Then ended up with way too much Antonio Gibson, but because it was just a really good. My guy, I think there are 2 guys like that this year. Tank Bigsby is one of them. He's totally nothing special, not that fast, like whatever. And then I can't get it. Like this Roshan Johnson thing is like some team is just going to be like, you're Samaj P right now. You are going to keep our quarterback from getting killed, basically.
Yeah. I love Roshan.
He took Bijan Robinson, a first-round running back, off the field on pass downs. That's crazy.
Yeah, I need to draft more of him. I think he's like one of those dudes who's never going to pop for me, but is just going to end up scoring fantasy points. So
he used to play quarterback. I think he went to Texas as a quarterback and then
dude,
over.
He was a 4-star. he was a 4-star high school quarterback recruit
Yeah.
who went to Texas and only changed positions because basically he was like, Texas has 9 quarterbacks at any given time and every running back got hurt and I want to play.
He's going round 3. That's my early bold take.
Okay.
He's going late round 3, and then
I'm with this.
He's gonna get steamed up, and he's gonna probably pass. He's gonna go to the Bengals and play the Samaje Perine role as like Zeke's like handcuff and end up winning.
Zeke's handcuff is a bet I will always make.
Yeah, it's
that has been a good bet. Roshan Johnson on this chart, you see he looks overvalued, but that's with expected draft position outside.
The chart doesn't know. The chart doesn't know that
doesn't
Roshan
know.
has that dog.
Once he's pick 80, all of a sudden he's firmly in the green here. So I like that one. A-Chain, I hear what you're saying about the weight, but like there is something to like he's super fast and he's gonna get drafted highly. Same
thing as Deuce Vaughn, where it's like some coach is gonna fall in love with the dude being so fast.
Do you think that the weight and the speed that wasn't like electrically fast, there was talk like he could be in the 4.2s, he's still very, very fast, but does he get drafted after Roshan or something? Is he a late third round pick?
I think he cost himself whatever the difference between a second round and a third round contract is by not running in the 4.2. You can't be, your claim to fame can't be, he won some event in NCAA track and field and then not run the fastest 40 time at running back.
I think he put on weight. That's why. And I think he's going to go round. I think he's going to go round 3, and he reminds me of like James Cook. Now I think that A-Chain's better than like James Cook, but I think we're like headed to that type of.
I didn't take
range
Cook last year, so maybe I won't have any.
That's interesting.
I think SEC and like was like a bell cow in the SEC. So like
a bell cow. Like he was getting like 30 touches against Bama,
and that's a legit offense. So.
Yeah, he's someone that it's a little risky because it's just like purely a bet on draft position. I don't love the profile, but I do think there's upside. Just if the draft position comes in, he just shouldn't be going where he's going in terms of closing line value. Is he going to settle at pick 150 if he's a second round pick, which there's a good chance of? Like, no, he's not. He's going to be way higher than that. So I don't want to be all in on him right now because I also am worried about the weight, but he makes sense to mix into me. Charbonnet, you're having to pay for, but he's still not. You're not overpaying per this chart. So
I think he's really undervalued. That's my bold.
JJ was bearish on Gibbs too.
Same.
Really, you're not that big. So okay, so why aren't you that into Gibbs? Is it because he's 199? Hayden, is he's under 200 now? The model doesn't like it.
The model doesn't care about the exact weight. The model does care about production, and he wasn't that productive at Alabama. He got a lot of passes and he was extremely explosive, but they would take him out on every short yardage. They would take him out at the goal line. He didn't get any of that stuff, even at Georgia Tech. So I think his tape is phenomenal. Like I understand why an NFL team would draft him very high, but for fantasy purposes, at least on Underdog where it's half PPR, I can see some hesitancy, like easier path to 250, 300 touches, Charbonnet versus Gibbs. I think Charbonnet can have it, and efficiency doesn't matter all that much here. So I really like Gibbs as like a prospect. I don't think that he's
going to be pigeonholed. It's like the worst. It's the thing we hate where the coaches are not. It's like the same thing. It's the Cowboys running back coach was like, yeah, we really didn't want to give Pollard 25 touches in this game that Zeke was out, and Pollard's big. He's like 215.
Yeah. I compared Gibbs to Pollard, assuming that's the type of role he's going to have. But like you said, Pollard is 10 pounds bigger than Jahmyr Gibbs. So I like Gibbs. I wish he was going 80th overall instead of 50th overall. And we'll see what happens with the Charbonnet stuff. But there's like Daniel Jeremiah ranks him as like 40th overall prospect. And obviously he's not accounting for positional value and stuff, but like it seems like Charbonnet is pretty well liked. So I just think that Charbonnet is probably going to go a little bit earlier. And I think that people are underestimating how like at least competent he is on third downs for somebody that weighs 215 pounds.
I agree that he's competent on third downs. Yeah, that's kind of what I brought up Cam Akers, and I like the James Conner comp as well. It's like I don't think he's gonna like impress anyone as a pass catcher, but I don't think he's gonna get himself embarrassed either. If he goes to a place where they have like a clear pass catching back already there, I don't think he's displacing him. But if they don't, he could be that guy. So there's definitely upside. It's a little fragile. But
have we talked about Abakanda yet who caught a bunch of passes in college, was a stone workhorse, like really, really held up. I guess because he has not done his pro day yet and didn't do anything at the combine, there's not really anything new to say.
Yeah, so that he was supposed to be super fast, right? But we don't have testing on him.
We don't have. I mean, he's
hype
list. Yeah, no. My guess is whenever Pitt does their pro day, we'll get some.
Yeah, Brugler, Jeremiah, all those types, like they just never rank him inside the top 10 of their rankings for the position. So it's just like, like is he going to go 5th round? Like then, like,
or is he not going to get drafted? It's a deep class. Like I remember with some of these deep classes a couple years ago where I was like, man,
guys you like don't even get drafted.
They don't even get drafted. Yeah. And it's like so crushing. It's like dudes you didn't expect. And it's like, yep, not even drafted. Yeah. And there's also a dude in here who you don't think is going to get drafted, who will. He'll be like
Mo Ibrahim, by the way, is my guy, where it's like in our stuff, it would be like, this guy's never caught any passes. He's 24 already. This guy is not an NFL player. And then boom, the Seahawks take him in the 4th round. And you're like, what just happened?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like Velus Jones obviously is a receiver, but there's stuff like that every year. We were like, what? Yeah.
I think it might be McBride going earlier than expected. Like PFF has him as the running back 5. I've seen like Brugler mess around with him as like the running back 6 and stuff. No hype on him. Not going to catch passes. Not going to be a guy that like the classic. Like
he has one of the lowest yards per route run I've ever seen. 0.16. He is like a pure 2-down guy, but I kind of like him. Like he's
early declare, really productive.
Yeah, he's like I think like Gus Edwardsy maybe, just like kind of he's definitely got burst. Like
do not invoke the name of Gus Edwards.
But I mean, Gus Edwards, there was that thing in Dynasty where you're like, I think I have something here, for a minute, and then they draft J.K. Dobbins.
Well, that's running backs, right? It's just running backs in general. Kerrane, I just made a trade that made my skin crawl. I traded the 108 for Dameon Pierce and Isaiah Pacheco. It's bad
in super flex.
It's bad, but I just need running back points. I had Pollard. That was it. This is my only guy who projects for over 100 points this upcoming year.
Scale to 1 to 10. How worried is the rug pull on Dameon Pierce with the NFL draft?
10 of 10. Literal chance they end up with Bijan Robinson. Literal chance they take Charbonnet. I would be shocked if they don't have at least one running back by pick 100 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the Shanahan guys coming in, and we know how they do it. They just
it's like the rug pull on Damien. What's his ADP in the big board?
He's like the running back 19 right now.
Yeah. Well, that actually seems measured. I think there was a chance. Like people were saying some crazy stuff about Dameon Pierce last year, like crazy stuff. Where it's like he's a 4th round rookie who got benched by his college team. So it's like, I mean, we've seen this happen so many times. 3rd round rookie.
Michael Carter, right? Michael Carter had a good rookie year. Boom, you're done. You're back.
They get a chance and then evaporate. Just like for what
it's crazy. And we're like really bad at remembering that. I think we're like, oh, this guy's.
Yeah, I know. I just traded for him.
You don't have to worry about that. And you traded for Pacheco, who's also.
And immediately said 10 out of 10 rug pull.
That's why Dynasty Fantasy Football is actually so stupid, because to get good running backs, you have to trade like meaningful assets. Yeah. But running backs can go to 0 like an illiquid shit coin. It's like minting an NFT that ends up being a rug pull. It's like, all right, and it's gone. It's just immediate. Like you just trade. It's useless
as soon as you click the button, and my money's evaporated.
And my money's gone.
All right, let's talk some stacks here. These are double stack average ADPs. Aaron Rodgers, we overrided the underdog, which still has him on Green Bay. We overrided it. He's a jet for this. So. I don't know. This chart always makes my head hurt a little bit. Anything jump out to you?
Yeah, people are so fucking frothy for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
What could go wrong here?
What could go wrong? Literally cumulatively drafting the Jaguars ahead of Lamar Jackson, the 49ers, the Detroit Lions, who we all think are going to be good, the Seahawks, who we have like a 9-year track record of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett just being the stones. Dallas,
Yeah.
we talked about that last week. Dallas is way too low. Denver is probably the best. Plug your nose and bet that Nathaniel Hackett is the worst coach of all time, and it gets back on track this year. Like, this is the to draft them as the 7th offense. The Jaguars, bro.
What's interesting too is that so this chart, the way to look at it is the quarterbacks are in purple. So with some of these other stacks like Miami, right, you're at least getting a cheap quarterback. You have to pay a lot for Tyreek Hill and Waddle.
I believe that's Tua head injury related. Personally,
I do too. But hey, it's a 1 week game here. We're trying to win 3 1 week tournaments to take down the money. So if he's healthy and he's got a healthy Tyreek and Waddle, he can have huge weeks. So I like this stack, but partly because I don't have to pay a ton for the quarterback in a market where quarterbacks are really expensive right now. That's not the case with the Jaguars. Yes, he's the cheapest, but he's still within the top 50 picks. You've taken your quarterback, you've taken 2 guys to go with him. So, I mean, it'd be one thing if you could get Lawrence as like a 6th or 7th round pick, but this is, I'm with you. It just feels expensive.
I'm not sure if I like the Christian Kirk price tag right now. Like, I think you have to make a decision on who Calvin Ridley is and then go from there. I might find myself just drafting Calvin Ridley and then
he guaranteed 1,400 yards, bro.
Yeah. So I think I might just go Calvin Ridley and then go find my stacks elsewhere.
How is Ridley not on the risers list after
that
Players Tribune article? I mean, he should be up 10 picks. I was pretty skeptical, and I'm like, no, I'm in.
Is Josh Norris still caballing Zay Jones to the people?
He better not be. He hasn't done it yet, but we have not.
Has anyone ever run as hot on a tout as Zay Jones and Josh Norris last year?
That's a pretty good one.
So ridiculous. It was the money thing. Going back to does he make more money than the Best Ball Mania winner? He made so much money.
Zay Jones has a bigger contract than Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yes, and that's why he was on it. He was like, you just sorted the next chart is just money this year versus ADP, and there'll be 3 guys you're like, oh, that's disgusting. We have to draft way more DJ Shark or whoever it is. So that's the next chart.
Yeah. Well, okay. So any other stacks jump out? I maintain that Carolina and Houston, it's like you're getting better. The offense is going to improve. And Houston's the one that I've done more because I also think Bryce Young is going there. So I go, okay, I'll get Nico Collins, who I like a lot. Cooks I'll take. And then it's like, if he's here, cool. If he gets traded, I have some upside. And if I have Collins, Collins stock goes up a little bit. So, you take a rookie, maybe you bank that. But I kind of like the cost a lot for Houston.
Shouldn't the Raiders be kind of interesting because we know Garoppolo will just feed that short area shit, and now Waller's gone and Moreau might be gone, so they might have some tight end come in who's cheap as hell.
My issue with the Raiders is, are they the team that takes Levis, and then
no, the
Colts are stacked dead for the fantasy playoffs? So okay, well then who's taking Richardson?
I think Carolina's taking Richardson. I don't think you ship. I don't think you ship all that stuff for Ohio State Kirk Cousins.
I think it's the other way. I don't think you can ship that much for Anthony Richardson, and then he sucks this year, and you lost Caleb Williams because you went after Anthony Richardson. At least like with Stroud,
wait,
you'd be like,
hang on. What if he sucks bad enough? Then you get Caleb Williams.
They don't have their pick.
But they don't have their pick. You lost Caleb Williams because you risked it on Anthony Richardson. Like that would be.
You know what? You're probably right. Actually, I'm probably wrong. I always sort of forget how much these dudes want to protect their jobs, and the watching another team watching the Bears decide actually Fields ain't it, and then taking Caleb Williams.
Yeah, it would be one of the worst trades of all time. Yeah, so I don't think I can risk it.
Now remember, Hayden is also a bit biased towards USC and
watch some film every once in a while.
Well, Caleb Williams was mine first, bud.
Thank you.
I mean, we can't draft him. What are you even saying?
Well, I mean, we did the same thing with Trevor Lawrence, right? Where it's like Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck. These guys. Oh my God, they're gonna be franchise changing. Andrew Luck won 1 playoff game, 2 playoff games. Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence looks good, but he's not as good
Hayden,
as
did you happen to
Burrow.
hear the podcast where Davis claimed that USC has never produced a good wide receiver?
Yeah, I did hear that one the other day.
It's not.
Yeah.
They have okay. At least admit they
I
have.
also thought of Robert Woods after the
They've had like
podcast.
8 first round wide receivers since I've been born.
Wide
But they
receivers.
have also had it's because they're such a wide receiver school. It's like the busts are even bigger.
Oh,
You know, I mean, you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
But also, I'm just saying stuff. You know,
Sometimes you just gotta say things.
There's some disgusting stacks in here that like to me like somebody on the Patriots is going to have to do something. I think that the Jordan Love stuff's at least interesting to me because we have some faith in Christian Watson at this point. Jordan Love has some theoretical upside as a first rounder. I wasn't really in on him as a prospect, but it's been 5 years. So maybe he's gotten better from where that kind of stands out. The Giants one, I think, is definitely going to be a one I would be attacking. They're going to play faster this year versus last year. Now that they got some dudes.
So one thing for me with quarterback is that I feel like, yes, there's upside at the position, but there's not as much upside at that position as others. And so I hate taking on downside risk that I'm not going to have that quarterback healthy, but not starting in the fantasy playoffs. I'm like, why would I risk that when my payoff when the guy hits isn't necessarily even going to be that high? So I struggle with the Vegas stack. I struggle with the Commander stack. Are you using Howell there? Like, I think that might be Brissett. So
I think it's Brissett.
Yeah. But I don't really want to take Brissett either. So I love the Giants call because you're getting Daniel Jones. He's not that expensive.
you guys you're missing the biggest value in talking about these veteran quarterbacks, Pat.
All right. Well, let me just finish with that. I think Jordan Love is pretty darn safe to be starting. He's either not starting at all because this Rodgers thing falls through and somehow Rodgers plays for them, but that seems extremely improbable now. I think he would just retire. They're starting Jordan Love in the fantasy playoffs unless he's hurt. So that one, like, I mean, he should be like much more expensive than a guy like Sam Howell to me.
Oh yeah.
You guys ready for 17 games of Baker Mayfield?
that's not how I'm playing this. I mean, Baker Mayfield could be on another team by week 17.
That's the Will Levis team is the Bucks at like 19th overall after he falls.
Well, actually, yeah, that feels possible. Yeah, but I mean, I've been saying it this whole time though, but the crappy third quarterbacks, the Brissetts, the Bakers, the whatever, these guys have extra value this year compared to any other year we've done this because the quarterback thirst in the first 100 picks is so real.
Yeah. See, I'd rather go like Levis is not someone that I think is a good prospect at all, but he's like, I think he's better prospect than like Desmond Ridder or something. I think he's better prospect than Kenny Pickett, frankly.
Well, the NFL agrees with you.
Yeah. So like his odds of starting by the end of the season, I think are pretty good and much better than guys like Howell and, Baker. So he's someone I'm still backdoor stacking. We're not stacking, but just tacking on as a 3 quarterback build. Sometimes I'll try to take him with a Raider or something.
I'm tacking on 240th overall Baker Mayfield. You can't stop me.
All right. Good luck. I mean, I could see it.
Well, it feels reasonable now when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are on the team. But if he's throwing to Scotty Miller and Brashad Perryman, I'll be out. I will not be.
I hope for Chris and Mike that he is doing, because please, they seem like good guys.
No. I mean, they get traded though. I mean.
No, I know.
Why is there any reason that Chris Godwin is on this team? If they've cut, I mean, how many veterans? I guess you guys aren't doing.
I think his contract makes it a little tough, right?
Godwin, they can get more from him, and Mike Evans they can't get that much out of him, but it's the final year of his deal. Chris Godwin they can save some money, but they like re-signed some defensive players. They're kind of like, I don't know what their exact plan is.
Just vibes.
I don't think.
Yeah,
no plan.
When has that gone wrong? Yeah.
All right. So this is expensive team level ADPs. This is relative to the odds to win the Super Bowl. So, like, for example, the Jets, well, they're going to be rising, but the Jets should be rising because their odds of winning the Super Bowl are up to 5%. But they're still going behind teams like the Vikings, the Browns. So obviously your odds of winning the Super Bowl is not necessarily a 1-for-1 correlation with offensive strength, but it's certainly not completely unrelated either. So this would be another Jacksonville 3% to win the Super Bowl, going ahead of the Chiefs, the Bills. Some of that's where I guess we feel more confident about where the targets are going, but still a little wonky.
Yeah, I don't have really strong takes with the Jet stuff. That feels appropriate. Now, they have like the 6th highest odds to win the Super Bowl in the entire league right now, which seems maybe a little bit too aggressive. But yeah, I always think like, just to me, like going back to the other conversation, like, is the Chiefs just draft Mahomes and then guess on all these wide receivers and just flip over the cards?
think it's
is
not
just the best way to do it?
Yeah, you just guess.
Yeah,
you just guess on later guys.
Well, what about the 2 Chiefs that I think are the most appealing at cost are MVS and
he's free.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who are both those guys are both free. Pete is about to kick me off ship chasing if I mention CH one more time. So I'll talk MVS because he's definitely going to be there. He provides a role for the team. He's not good, but with Sky Moore,
he just needs a little bit of positive variance. Like if 3, I mean, how many deep balls did MBS drop in 2022 or just miss?
Well, he would catch them and they wouldn't be touchdowns. He had like multiple 40-yard catches that weren't touchdowns. And usually you catch and run. And it's just like they're 80-yard touchdowns.
You get like 4-5 plays of positive variance in that degree, and then all of a sudden you're talking about the wide receiver 33 in fantasy football.
Yeah. And with Juju gone, oh, go ahead.
I was just say real quick for like game theory. I think that a lot of people drafting Patrick Mahomes in the second round right now are the Travis Kelce stacks. If you want to play Galaxy Brain, don't draft Travis Kelce in the first round. Just draft Patrick Mahomes, and now you have a unique Patrick Mahomes team with still as much upside. I don't think like Kelce's.
That's not Galaxy Brain. Galaxy Brain is tacking on Noah Gray at the end because you're playing for the Kelce injury.
There you go. Like literally, your last 5 picks could all just be the scrubbiest Chiefs players and just draft Patrick.
That's what I did in playoff drafts, right? In underdog playoff drafts, I was like a little bit of McCole Hardman, a little bit of Noah Gray, a little bit of Ronald Jones. You never know. Like that was totally the move.
So with Juju gone, I think Sky's probably going to move up a little bit more. He's already been priced. He's at pick 133 right now. Like that's not that cheap. It's not crazy prohibitively expensive, but like if he's moving up from here, not someone I would recommend like hammering. And then MVS is at pick 172.
Yeah.
So you already have a huge discount. And I don't know. I mean, I think there's more upside with Sky because is more of an unknown. Maybe he has a second year breakout. He wasn't terrible when he's on the field. Not a great sign that he was never on the field, but MVS, we know he's going to be out there and he has a deep threat role. So I don't really get why he's quite as cheap as he is.
The range of wide receivers, those wide receivers by MVS are awful to me. Like they project so because like all the wide receivers are going earlier. So the fact to me it's gonna be harder to find sleeper wide receivers because we are spending all of our time and energy trying to find them. Like the one falling through the cracks to me is gonna be harder and harder to do.
It's totally a devil you don't know versus a devil you do know thing with MVS. That's all it is.
Yeah. But, that's I think like one of the leaks on the whole. That's why the Zay Jones call ended up being so good. It's because we're like, we're definitely not drafting Zay Jones, no matter how many targets he gets.
I wonder how many teams drafted Laquan Treadwell last year. Just like, you never know.
Oof. All right. What else we got? I think there's one more chart here. No, this is the cheap team level ADPs. Arizona 0% chance to win the Super Bowl. But still some interest in them.
Yeah, that's still way high.
This is just these Dallas prices, man. You gotta start taking them. Like I know it's like McCarthy and they're gonna get totally shit canned a bunch of games, but Dak's pretty good, and Gallup will be back another year from the ACL, and you could probably take Jake Ferguson right now. Or you could just speculate on any free agent tight end, Gerald Everett style guys or whatever landing there.
Speaking of Dallas, like Tony Pollard picked 33. Why am I supposed to take Kenneth Walker over Tony Pollard? Tell me why.
Legendary upside, bro.
He doesn't catch passes. Tony Pollard does.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tony Pollard. If it's June 4th and Tony Pollard's still running back 33, I'll just have him at 100% of teams. Probably.
Yeah.
I won't be able, because my thesis was always that if Zeke were to ever suffer a preseason injury in any of the years that Pollard was there, like Pollard would be like the 3rd overall pick. So I'm not gonna not take him in the 3rd round or even at like 20th overall. I'm probably still smashing that button.
Yeah.
I love all the round 2-3 turn running backs. Like, I'm fine with Kenneth Walker, fine with Breece Hall, Pollard, Ramondre. Like that range right there, I think is pretty intriguing.
I tell you what, I don't mind Josh Jacobs at that price. I don't mind Nick Chubb at that price.
Yeah.
Like if Chubb's still in Cleveland and it's him and Jerome Ford, he's not. I think he might catch passes like he did 2 or 3 years ago when he actually, I guess 3 years ago when he actually had a little bit of juice there.
Yeah. Jefferson, running back, and then like 5 straight wide receivers thrown.
I actually love that.
Great.
I don't like the first round running backs all that much, but CMC obviously has a ton of upside, but there's a lot of opportunity cost. But yeah, I love going wide receiver, running back right now. It's a really nice build. And then it's still you're not behind the 8 ball at wide receiver yet because there's enough wide receivers in rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gets a little shaky, but there's guys I like. And then it's over. There's no one else. So you gotta get your wide receivers done, but you don't have to take them all. You don't need 8 in the first 8. So, all right.
Yeah,
Positional
that is
ADP.
reasonable.
Okay.
I was looking at this like very quickly last year. Teams that didn't draft that many wide receivers, but drafted a lot of them high, like 6 wide receiver builds, but they finished before round 12 with all 6 of them, were pretty intriguing. And this year, the prices on wide receivers are up and the running backs are down. So I think like my favorite strategy right now would be going like the
hyper fragile wide receiver.
Same amount of running backs and wide receivers.
But which ones do you take first, Hayden?
You can draft 1 running back and then 6 straight wide receivers, and then finish the draft with about 7 straight running backs. And now you're
you couldn't do it. You couldn't just say go 0 running back for 6 rounds and then take running backs. You
so
just couldn't do it.
Can't do it.
My gut take on that, my intuitive take on that is that maybe like it feels like it could shake out that way in a large sample, but then you just end up having a bunch of teams who have 4 running backs who literally never contribute a single point to your line because they're just less. Their running backs are volatile, but in playing time, not in production. Right. So it's like you got to run really hot to get the playing time, and then they're a little bit less volatile. But the wide receivers, it's like I don't know how many. MBS probably had 3 spike weeks last year while being completely useless. If I had to guess. Same deal. Hardman. Just like if we're thinking about.
I think you're including the playoff one in that to get to 3, but I see your point. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, but it's like Matt Collins. Where's Matt Collins going right now? Like 193rd overall, something like that, probably. Matt Collins will get 2 weeks with 18 underdog points, probably.
I think people are overestimating how volatile the good wide receivers are because you're talking about 30. They only like to get into like the average lineup. You have to be a top 36 wide receiver plus the flex position. For running backs, like the volatility is a little bit more just because there's fewer running backs that are like in like a starting lineup. So like even Justin Jefferson's bad week is still like the wide receiver 24. He's going to be in your lineup. So I think we've overestimated how many wide receivers you actually need to play the volatility game. And a lot of the good wide receivers are fairly like stable for the most part.
It's kind of a genius point, Hayden. I've literally never once considered that.
So you're saying the zero running back. Well, you're not saying 0 running back, but what I'm interpreting is 0 running back and then stop sooner. So see, it is tough, right? 6 wide receivers and you're done.
But if they're all good ones,
Bible build.
If they're all good ones,
but they're all good. And obviously, you're betting that they stay roughly healthy. Sure. That you have 6 guys.
That's every position. That's like
right.
If you're doing elite tight end, that's what you do. If you're doing running back,
Hayden, I got to take us in a different tangent before I lose this thought. Have you done any of the looking in on handcuffing your own running backs this year from last year's data?
I did something very small. I think it was just like for a tweet. I haven't done like a paper on there.
Because I can just think of, off the top of my head, I can think of 2 spots where you would have absolutely nutted out. Panthers obviously being one where if you took Christian McCaffrey and Donta Foreman David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, you would have gotten multiple. Now, well, they didn't do anything in the playoffs. Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, you would have nutted out. I'm sure if we go through these, there's probably, if you had taken McKinnon and Pacheco, stuff like that. Like there were a lot where either they were both playing or the spike weeks just.
Well, I had
alternated
Michelle
really well.
and Mostert on the same team. Michelle obviously didn't end up being on the Dolphins, but he was.
I mean, that's kind of part of the thesis, though, is running back is literally that weird. You can get cut in week 6 and be starting for some shit team in week 10.
Yeah. The one thing with like the handcuffing, I think I'm more open to it on like best ball is if you're like early running backs out, like you are looking to fill that position. And like we play this game, like there's upside that like if you have different handcuffs, then like if they're both good, now they're both in your lineup. But like the odds that you're cracking that lineup are lower because the other one's still healthy. Like if you're out on those points, like you are desperate to fill those points, and you can play that game where like low advance rate. Now he's healthy again. Now you're back in business.
Right.
So
or even it helps.
Much.
Even it helps your advance rate, right? It's actually a high advance rate pair. It's if you draft Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison, and Cook misses week 6 through 10, that happens to be a soft part of the Vikings schedule. Madison goes nuts. Cook comes back and averages 16.5 underdog points per game. I mean, Pat, how many guys on your winning team were not frequent lineup contributors? Zero some percentage of the time.
I had this dynamic at quarterback because I had Tom Brady, who stunk and then was in my final week lineup, and I had Tua, who was obviously battling injury, but definitely helped when he was in there. And then I had Daniel Jones, who just kind of helped chug along and get me enough quarterback points. And I did the math. I wouldn't have advanced out of the, through weeks 1 through 14, I wouldn't have advanced without three guys.
Right.
So yeah, that's my story. My version of that story at running back.
Yeah. I like the 3 quarterback builds.
Well, so that goes to something I wanted to ask you about, which you're talking about zero running back or hero running back where you don't take that many wide receivers. Former best ball champion Liam Murphy saying that he likes that strategy, does it a lot. That leaves you some additional positions because, like, I would say kind of like the standard zero running back build would be 2 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 8 receivers, 2 tight ends. Maybe last year, maybe you would have argued it's actually 2-7-7-2 or something like that. But if you're only going 6 receivers, it opens up roster spots. Are you spending them at running back, or are you spending them to go 3 quarterback, 3 tight end? What do you think?
I'm basically pretending the tight end position doesn't exist until like round 14. So I like the 3 tight end builds, going like complete punt and just play the volatility game.
Alberto, Juwan Johnson.
Any of those guys. We always pretend they don't hit. But like we had like Evan Ingram and stuff. We had like last year, I thought there was actually David Njoku. If he stayed healthy, he would have been a complete smash. Like there's a lot of the kind of tier that I think actually pays off. And you can get those guys play the correlation game because you've already drafted their quarterback. So you've already kind of dwindled down the list. You can play the correlation game and the volatility game for that position.
What if you've drafted a guy who is a quarterback? Because I think Taysom Hill goes in round 14, right?
Taysom Hill, big loser from the Jamal Williams acquisition, unfortunately.
I actually think Jamal Williams is the big loser because Taysom's
well, I mean, Jamal Williams is in a bad spot in general, yes, but I guess whoever ends up winning that variance fest between Taysom and Jamal Williams will be interesting.
Yeah,
only one of them has tight end eligibility.
Yeah, with Jameis back, he's gonna play like legit running back and wildcat and stuff. So is that good or bad? I've been going. It's probably bad because I mean Taysom threw 20 passes last year in basically the same circumstance. He'll probably do that again.
Yeah, he's going in the 13th round. I'm drafting him, man. I'm drafting him.
Just are people like, or do they not learn, man? He's good there. It's where I would start to get skittish would be like 10th round, like top 100 level.
Sure.
I'm like, that's a bit much.
For sure. All right, sorry, I derailed this one, Taysom. But so you're saying you've opened up at least one compared to the 2, 6, 8, 2. You've opened up 2 roster spots because you're going from 8 wide receivers down to 6. So you're using one on tight end. Are you using the other on quarterback?
Yeah, quarterback or running back kind of just depends
Yeah.
on the build of what quarterbacks I'm getting. Now this year it's gonna be impossible. Like I'm gonna do a when to draft quarterbacks article based off of last year's data, but the prices have changed so much that it really doesn't even. It's like hard to gauge.
Yeah, they don't
because,
even
like,
line up.
So like,
Right.
how do you kind of play that? Like to me, like if I go Patrick Mahomes in the second round, do you just go like somebody in the 13th round and call it a day, or do you
Baker.
still do two? Like I don't know. That's gonna be kind of a impossible one to answer right now because like we don't have any data with that. But typically, I like just like the correlation of like the quarterbacks with the tight ends, and I'll bank on my wide receivers staying healthy. And then you just hope that the running backs that you're picking in the dead zone and after that are the ones that smash. So like my favorite one would be like one running back or maybe two running backs in the first 3 rounds, and then firing from like round 9 to round 15, 16, 17, grab 6 running backs in that range. And by that time, you've already drafted all your receivers, and just quarterback and versus tight end doesn't really matter to me that much. Except I'm never drafting an elite tight end.
I can't get on board with that.
Kelsey.
I do love my elite tight ends. I gotta say, actually think I have like now I'm biased. Kittle was on my team, but I feel like last year was a really strong year for elite tight end because it's sort of like no one hit except Kelsey, but yet like the only reason that I made the finals was because George Kittle, and it's like a reminder to me that like, oh yeah, because the position is a wasteland, if you get a couple ceiling games from the same
Ceiling games is enough.
It's unbelievable. The leverage you get on the field is really hard to overstate.
Well,
and
speaking of elite tight ends,
there are a
Donald
few guys
Parham,
who can do it.
Donald Parham just re-signed with the Chargers like 2 minutes ago. So round 10 ADP incoming.
Liam coming in hot here. You're not winning tournaments without elite tight end. We like our elite tight ends, me and Liam, I guess. But
I think the point is that they're like, from Hayden's perspective, they're going to look bad in the data because the advance rates are going to be bad. They're going to underperform their ADP. But just having
you're burning teams. You're burning teams. Like
burning teams.
If you don't get most likely, the tight end you select in the 5th round is going to get buried by a wide receiver that you could have taken right around there. And
what was Darren Waller's advance rate last year?
Gotta be horrible. And then if you don't get the spike weeks from that guy, which Kittle's the example, right? Kittle was not helpful relative to other dudes you could have taken. Like, you know, if you get like Kittle or Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, come on, you do not want Kittle. But the fact that he happened to have those spike weeks makes him an immensely better pick to me. And I know that like it's a lot of luck that he gets the spike weeks in the right weeks, but like that's the kind of the whole point, is that there are a handful of guys who we can actually like bet on with semi-reasonable confidence to do it.
The counter would be that there's only like 12 tight ends, and like even if Kelsey goes off, like Justin Jefferson going off versus 36 starting wide receivers, like you have to start so many more players like across like the tournament, that the Justin Jefferson points, I think we're like underestimating like how big of a gap that is. And tight end's just so volatile that like Dalton Schultz can catch 2 touchdowns and stuff, like, and very rarely is like Travis Kelce has like this undeniable ceiling, but he goes right next to like Justin Jefferson and those type of guys who have a enormous ceiling as well. So I think that we play this game that like tight ends like lap the field more than they actually do, because we're underestimating that Joe Mixon game where he had 58 points. You're like, that's not going to happen with Kelsey, and you have to start way more players at the non-onesie positions.
But this is why I actually think that tight end being a true wasteland is helpful for the elite tight end strategy, because it does, like, yes, anybody can kind of
imagine the leverage,
but they rarely do.
Imagine if George Kittle is the highest scoring pass catcher in week 17, you know, like that's like uber. Yeah, it's like uber duber leverage. It's like double leverage.
But like by how much though? Like George Kittle can have like 22 points, and David Njoku has 17, and like from like last year, for example,
it's a lot of leverage. 5 points is a lot.
Yeah, maybe like the price tags are way different. Like you have to subtract.
Well, just think of the
difference or whatever.
So think of the combinatorics. If Kittle is a low advance rate guy, which we're sort of granting that unless
He
a
will
guy,
be. Yeah.
yeah. So just put Kittle, Andrews, whoever, put guy we all agree has ceiling, but is going to have some pretty bad regular season stretches.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that guy through. Let's say he's on 5% of the final teams, and he outscores every other first round player. So let's call it 25 points, and let's say three other tight ends all score 18 or 19 or 20 roughly there. I mean, there's obviously would be a way to sim this out, and Hooper or whatever, someone could do this. My guess is that is way better than having a 13% advance rate Justin Jefferson, who's also the highest, in an alternate reality, is also the highest scoring player. Whereas you're coin flipping with a bunch of Njoku, Parham, whatever tight end guys.
But whenever we play this game, we're comparing it to the wide receiver that was dominating, when I can just point to Mike Evans from last year, who also could do the George Kittle thing and suck all year, and then he pops off and he can have.
If Mike Evans was a tight end, Mike Evans
was a tight end.
Year.
I would not. Yeah, you're on a different stream right now. There's someone else.
Correct. Well, you wouldn't be streaming because you'd be doing Rex Burkhead is pondering retirement blurbs.
Exactly. I would be blurbing Rex Burkhead right now. I think one of the other things though is that it's not just week 17. It's that the elite tight end going off in week 15 or 16, I think is maybe even more impactful.
Gets you. It has the ability to bring through high ceiling or even like, let's say Justin Jefferson, really good in the regular season, but he scores 8 points in week 15.
Right.
But you get a big Kittle game
into week 17.
You get other high ceiling players through.
Exactly. And you're in smaller pods. So like, what are sure, a rando can have 2 touchdowns, but there's only, however many teams in that particular week, and there's less chance of that. If you're in week 17, there's probably some guy who gets in the end zone a couple of times, but in the advanced rate weeks, like maybe that guy's not in your pod, and there's probably pretty good chance he's not, because it's like so random at tight end. I mean, it could be like a Jawan Johnson. He wasn't even drafted in a lot of leagues. So that to me is the power. It's like, if you just happen to get a week 15 from one of these guys, or a week 16 from one of these guys, and it gets a team that wouldn't have otherwise gotten into the final. And then to Davis's point, if you happen to have a guy who's not all that highly owned in the final because you didn't need his points to get in because you had the tight end, then you actually maybe don't even need that many tight end points in the final week.
I think you can make that exact argument for every position though. Like that exists for every other position. And then when you're just going to like baseline projections and stuff,
but the point scores in general are the least common at tight end. Tight end scores the fewest amount of points.
It's that it has the most leverage. It does exist at every position.
I disagree with that because it's scoring the fewest points. It's hard to actually separate in the points you're talking about. Like when a running back or wide receiver goes really off, or like the Justin Fields crazy games, that's a 45-point game versus the baseline 18. The Travis Kelce, like sometimes he has like a 30-point game, but most of his spike week, George Kittle spike weeks, are 23 points. Like the difference between like that's like a 11 or 12-point gap versus when the running back or wide receiver does it. Now we're talking about 20, 25 points.
Well,
it's just ultimate ceiling is so much higher.
You do want to factor in price though. Like obviously I wouldn't want to be taking one of these guys, in the first 5 picks or something. I mean, Kelsey's a bit of a different story, but actually I'm not drafting a lot of Kelsey right now. I agree with your point.
How are we feeling about 34-year-old Travis Kelce?
Yeah.
I mean, I was out last year at pick fucking 13 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be in at pick 5.
Right. So I agree with that. Like if you're just shooting for like the very, very highest ceilings and you're giving up the opportunity cost of a Justin Jefferson, it's not as appealing. But I mean, George Kittle right now is like what, a 5th round pick, Dallas Goedert 6th round, Kyle Pitts 6th round. Mark Andrews is 3rd.
God help the Kyle Pitts drafters.
Hey man, the guy he never gets in the end zone. So that hurts.
I was hoping for tandem.
Every Kyle Pitts analysis starts with Kyle Pitts could.
He could. Now he never has. That's not great.
The last thing on the tight end stuff is from rounds 15 and on, you're getting tight ends that project for every down rolls that actually project for fantasy points, and that running back and wide receiver, it completely dries up. And you're just looking about like if a lot of teams are doing the 2 tight end builds, like the tight end 25, that's like a legit starting player for an NFL team. If everyone's drafting 8, 9, even up to 10 wide receivers, we're drafting like legit wide receiver 4s on teams. So at the very end of drafts, those tight ends are like actually projected for points. And obviously it's like not that many points, but I think even like that stuff matters. Plus you're drafting then for the correlation, like the tight ends, because they're so volatile with touchdowns, they're really correlated to the quarterbacks. And you can draft the quarterback that you want, the position that actually scores the most points, and then add on the correlation of the tight end at the end. You can't do that. Like it's harder to do on the inverse. Like you're committing to the early tight end, and then you have to draft his quarterback, when I think it should be the other way around, because the quarterback score so many more points, especially in half PPR, that I want to draft the higher position and then chase the correlation with the lower position, the one that doesn't get that many yards and reception, that's basically playing the touchdown game. So that's kind of how I always play.
I like that group of tight ends as well. And traditionally I've sort of tended to sit out the tight ends going in like rounds 7, 8, 9,
the tight end
10.
dead zone.
Yeah, because like that's a decent price you're paying. The market doesn't think those guys have the same ceiling. And you're kind of just, it's an expensive touchdown game with those guys. Now I kind of like the guys in that range a little bit more than usual, but generally, and you see this dynamic, by the way, in DFS, where it's like, I just want to pay min price for the tight end.
Yep.
I'll correlate it and make it part of a double, triple stack or whatever, depending on field size. Or, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to pay up for Kelsey this week, or I'm going to pay up for, it's usually Kelsey, but you actually go for it at tight end, and you kind of, when you do that, you're like burning that week most likely. But if you get it, it does provide huge leverage in DFS as well, which is one reason I'm kind of sticking with my argument that I think like I've seen the leverage play out in a couple different formats with elite tight ends. So it does feel like you get the most leverage there when the guy actually comes through, even though he very rarely does.
On that Kelsey, I haven't played DFS in a couple of years because I work at Underdog. I can't. Is the Kelsey prices from last year, were they the same as the elite running backs and wide receivers and the elite quarterbacks, or was he at like 60? So that's kind of the ADP.
He was like 8,000 instead of 10,000.
Right. So I think like there's some parallels to that, where the price point is a little bit cheaper in the DFS time, and like over the long term, I think the quarterbacks are going to stay healthier. So really, like, I can't invest into every single position. I want to play the upside game with the quarterbacks. I want to pick which teams I'm actually correlating with. So I'm going to be investing into the quarterbacks. We've all agreed that you can't not have good wide receivers. I think there's a lot of upside in the ADPs keep dropping for the running backs. So some positions got to be just completely punted off. And I feel comfortable that the position that's averages 7 points per game versus the position that's averages 22 points actually matters. Like that's like the first bullet point here is 7 points versus 20 points. Even if you're lapping the field, it's a difference of 5 versus 10.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. If you're punting off position, maybe punt off the one that doesn't score any points. If you're going to, these are 20 round drafts right now. What do you think about 4 tight end builds? I've experimented a little bit with that because you got the 2 extra rounds, and it's like, hey, at the end, I am finding I'm getting starters. And this is also, I think, a very strong rookie class. I like Sam Laporta in the 20th round. You can get Luke Musgrave in the 20th round. Dalton Kincaid's not all that expensive. Like I can tack on, a rookie and a guy like Juwan Johnson who has a job or whatever very, very cheaply. And if you cobble together 4, maybe you get the touchdowns in the right weeks.
Yeah. All of mine are from 18 rounds. So 4 tight ends has never been like a profitable strategy, like on a macro level year to year, the last 3 years on Underdog. But with the 20 rounds, that's where like the gap can close from 4 to 3. And this is like, if I only looked at teams that hadn't drafted tight end the first 10 rounds, maybe the 4th tight end becomes something more interesting. So that's like something we have to kind of filter out. But I'm with you. The rookie tight end class being this good, like it does make, I think, the late round tight end piece even more intriguing, just because like some of these guys are going to be stealing starting spots or just snaps in general from guys that were drafting in the top 15. Like Chig, Okonkwo and stuff. Like I like some of the upside of this, like Greg Dulcich. I like the upside, but like there's a chance that like Sam Laporta goes to the Broncos or something like that. And now all of a sudden you didn't want the guy in round 11.
Or Darnell Washington and he's blocking, a lot. And maybe he's not even that valuable, but he's out there and Dulcich isn't.
Yeah. So I like just, I like to punt the tight end position. At the end of the day, the bet I'm making is that this position scores the least amount of points, and we'll go from there.
You're gonna win that bet. Yeah, it's just can you luck into the right points in the right week? But there's multiple ways to do it, and maybe you do it by getting a super cheap guy who scores a touchdown, which will probably, I mean, there will be that guy. So if you hunt for him, maybe you'll find him. All right, so we close the show by selecting a player who we think is our flag plant for closing line value. This is where you get your Rashad Pennies. We've had pretty good track record so far.
Baker, baby, he's going way up. Baker stonks.
All right, go ahead. Is that your guy, Baker?
That was my guy week 1.
Oh. Okay. Well, that worked.
Sure did.
Do you have a guy this week?
I think I'm just going to take the easy way out and say Valdez-Scantling, since we all just like universally agreed on that one, that as a starting wide receiver, he's going to end up going way up. I will say another one that is a little bit less obvious, Greg Dortch, after DeAndre Hopkins gets traded. He'll go up a good little bit after that deal gets finalized, I think.
Hayden, do you have one?
I'm just going to group together the thick rookie running backs that are going in like the 180 to 200 range. We know that the price tags are down. We're all kind of on some version of zero running back at this point, whether it's one running back early or zero. So the guys in particular, give me Roschon Johnson, give me Kendre Miller, and Dwayne McBride would be my 3 that you should be tacking off there. The guys that if they get round 3, round 4 draft capital, that's how you look into Dameon Pierce, Brian Robinson profiles. And they are like absolutely free, and they didn't have the NFL draft hype because they didn't like smash the 40 or didn't run in particular, but coaches don't really care about that.
Yeah, and Chase Brown's still like semi-palatable, I think, where he's going. So I like those guys that you mentioned a lot. I was taking a lot of McBride early. I've gotten a little bit nervous about just how slow his top end speed might be, but he was very productive. So
and early
like
declare.
Yeah. I think I said Pollard the first week. If I didn't, that's who I'll say.
What a dub. What a dub.
If not, I'll say Breece Hall. Whichever, I think I've said one and not the other. So whichever one I didn't say, but I'm pretty sure I said Pollard. So Breece Hall, I'll say. And why isn't he rising a lot? Like it felt to me that the Jets were going to go get a quarterback. You know, they obviously went the most risky route, where they just like kind of went all in on Rodgers. And that obviously could have ended in disaster, but it looks like it's going to end with Rodgers being their quarterback, which is massive for the quality of the offense and Breece Hall. And everything on the ACL tear stuff has been pretty positive so far. We're not hearing any of the Javonte Williams worries. So I think like when you look at his rookie season and how good he was and how much he was involved as a receiver and how efficient he was as a receiver. Like looking at, I did my legendary upside thing for running backs. He came on as the number 1 guy. Like, because I'm looking at second year guys, I'm looking at, based on the type of dudes who've in the past had these massive seasons, they tend to be younger than you'd think. And they tend to be hyper efficient because like basically no workload can get you to the level of this earth shattering season. You need to be hyper efficient. It really helps if you're hyper efficient in both phases of the game. I don't know, man. Like if he was healthy and they had Rodgers, wouldn't he be like the 6th pick? Is he the 106 with Rodgers and he didn't tear his ACL?
Yeah.
So
I
getting him with the 2-3 turn feels like a fucking smash.
I love that call. Pat, what about Ramondre? Same kind of thing, but obviously the offense isn't supposed to be as good. But like, I think Ramondre is like could be pretty special this year.
Ramondre, I mean, I've always loved Ramondre, so I like that one too. You're getting an offense coordinator, not even upgrade. You're getting an offensive coordinator.
You're getting an
nice.
offensive coordinator.
That's good.
Yeah, that's big.
That's good to have. On
Joe
a team.
Judge, much less involved.
Yeah, and at Patricia, oh god, Mac Jones, like I guess all that like kind of trade, like we'll even that's all gone away. So it's stability. Yeah, I like him. I love the James Robinson signing for him. I think he's protected by that.
If Damian doesn't get that much money and the Patriots decided not to bring him back, I think that's like a sign that they really are about to unleash Ramondre, who they've kind of been like slow playing his role every single year.
Yeah, I like that one. There's like I would say a 25% chance that Breece Hall was my previous guy, so I will just tout Pollard real quick, which and I'll just tout the site that I started, legendaryupside.com. There's an article on there for free. It's a public article, and I talk about Tony Pollard, who I say I'd be comfortable taking in the mid-second. So to get him still at the 3-4 turn, still, I don't really get it, man. I took him at the 305 the day that Zeke got cut because I was like, I took him because I wanted to draft Tony Pollard, but I thought he would be like kind of rocketing up. And right now he's still going behind ETN, still behind Josh Jacobs, still behind Nick Chubb, still behind Derrick Henry. I don't know. I think I like him the most of all those guys.
Yeah, how confident are you that you like Pollard versus CDs, like straight up? Like, I know you're a wide receiver guy, but like,
I'm taking CD ahead of Pollard, but I kind of like that's where you start to go, okay, all right, let's get into it, because Pollard has a ton of upside.
Mm-hmm.
But would you actually take him over CD?
I would.
I think I would.
I'm the Pollard bull, man. He's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
If that's the way you guys feel, then he is like literally going at the wrong turn. Like you can sit at the 1-2 turn, pass, and then get him at the next turn. Like that, those types of values are like very rare.
Mm-hmm. He's a running back you actually want to draft. If you go down the board and look at every single round at ADP, how often are you like, oh, I actually want to draft this running back? So you have to draft running backs at a certain point, I think. And I think that Pollard would be one of the guys that qualifies early up in the board. And I think that we should go after him.
For sure. Yeah, I think like generally the running back position, it's not like, compared to past years, it's definitely devalued. There are some running backs where I'm sort of like, yeah, I'm glad you're devalued. Like I still don't really like this running back here, but there's more running backs than ever where I'm like, I really like Breece Hall where he's going. I really like Tony Pollard where he's going. I don't mind guys that I like. Josh Jacobs coming off the season he's coming off of, 5 years ago, been someone that I had almost none of this year.
Right.
Because he just would have been too expensive. He's pretty reasonably priced.
Mm-hmm. On average, I think the top 36 running backs are down 10 points compared to last year's ADP, or 10 overall draft spots. So
still not drafting Najee Harris, though. You guys can have him.
You can't make me.
I'm buying, I think.
No, I need another 2 rounds. Get him into this. Get him into the 6th or 7th, then I'll start to pick 43. No, that's for someone else. Yeah. All right, guys. I think that'll do it. Hayden, thanks so much for coming on. What do we got going on over at Underdog?
We are about to do draft prospect videos. So this year we're going to just do one prospect at a time. It'll be like 10 minutes or so per player. We're going to have some film, have some charts, do all that fun stuff, go over pros and cons, where we think they're going to get drafted. And yeah, it'll just be more of a film-based show this year. And we're just going to do like basically one prospect per day up until the draft. Awesome. So we should be able to knock out like everybody that's on this chart, for example.
Now, I know you like quarterbacks and it's an important position for fantasy, and Superflex is a format that exists. Is that something that maybe we'll be drafting at any point?
I think we're close to making that decision. I think there's 30% left in a certain tournament before we get there, but we're pacing for that. I would highly recommend getting some Superflex rankings up and ready.
Okay, all right, that's a tease. Davis, what do you got going on?
Nothing a ton coming out right now. Just the podcast gonna keep churning. But the volume will pick up definitely as we get a little bit closer to the draft. Want to doing a little bit of betting the NFL draft stuff, since many people have legal sports betting books available to them.
All right. I will mention again, legendaryupside.com just launched it yesterday. There's a $30 off early bird discount. If you sign up just on the main page, it gives you a 30-day trial. If you do it that way, I'm going to go give you the discount. You're not going to not get the discount. So you can do the normal sign up.
Good guy, Pat.
Yeah. I'm going through the back end of Stripe and applying discounts. So it's actually not that time consuming. I couldn't figure out how to do a trial plus discount. I wanted the trial to be the default option, but you're not losing out on the discount no matter what. So go sign up. All my stuff is coming out on the site already. I've got that Pollard article mentioned. I've got an article on the wide receivers, the top 3 rookie wide receivers for me. The Jackson Smith and Jigba section is completely free. And there'll be more free content as well as premium content next week. And there's also a premium podcast that has audio versions of the posts. So if you're into consuming your content through audio, I've got you covered there. But yeah, legendaryupside.com. Check it out. Thank you guys. This has been a fun one. We'll see you next week on the normal ship chasing show as I find the outro.